The bipartisan national security funding bill in the Senate has been released. It is 370 pages long. So instead of going through that, I'm going to go through a co-author of the immigration provisions explaining what they believe are the most important parts, because that is the provision that most people are interested in. But a little update before that. One of the security people from the Take Our Border Back convoy has posted publicly that they were pulled over under suspicion of illegal immigration, and they didn't like the amount of police that actually responded to the call, which I find absolutely hilarious. Mike Johnson this morning claimed that he was not allowed to be involved in this bill. That is a lie. He declined to be involved, and that is confirmed by Republicans. And Mike Johnson will not say whether he'll even let the House vote on this bill, because as much as he wants to say the House would not pass it, they probably would. So with that being said, here's what is going on. Minutes ago, the text of the bipartisan national security funding bill was released. It funds Ukraine, Israel, and humanitarian relief, secures our border, and reforms our asylum law. As the co-author of the immigration provisions, there's a thread on the key elements, which these could have changed since you last heard about them. It would be easy to just keep immigration and border policy as a political cudgel for another 40 years, but politics at its best is about finding bipartisan compromise on the toughest issues, and that's what we've done here. Here's a snapshot of what's in the bill. A quicker and fairer asylum process, no more 10-year wait. Claims processed in a non-detained, non-adversarial way in 6 months. A slightly higher asylum screening standard at the border. Also, no more waiting for work permits. Most asylum seekers can work immediately. This is sounding like things that Republicans want, because remember, they do want these asylum seekers, many of them, to be here for things like farm labor. You'll hear it all the time. They'll admit they want them for that. And of course, 6 months is way better than 10 years to actually see if they'll get asylum. A brand new right to legal representation for all immigrants. Remember when Trump denied lawyers to victims of the Muslim ban? Never again. And first ever government paid for lawyers for young unaccompanied minors, a long-standing injustice righted. A requirement, the president to funnel asylum claims to the land ports of entry when more than 5,000 people cross a day. The border never closes, but claims must be processed at the ports. This allows for a more orderly, humane asylum processing system. So this is a change from what we've heard and got leaked and put out there. Was going to be 5,000 a day, shut down the border for 2 weeks. This is saying instead they must go through the ports, which would force everything into like that system. It would kind of slow things down quite a bit if it hits 5,000 a day. Let's continue. But important checks on that power. It can only be used for a limited number of days per year. It sunsets in 3 years. Emergency cases that show up between the ports still need to be accepted. The ports must process a minimum of 140 claims a day. So, if there are 5,000 people crossing a day, if I'm understanding this right, they must go through the ports. And then the ports must process a minimum of 1,400 of them a day. So if it hits 5,000, it cuts down the amount that actually could be processed. This is what it's sounding like to me. Not the closed border people were wanting before, but it does sound like it lowers the number from where it is now and from where it was when Trump was president. You can't reduce arrivals at the border without allowing for more legal immigration, so more visas. Well, Republicans love legal immigration, so they shouldn't have a problem with this, right? 50,000 extra employment and family reunification visas every year for the next 5 years. And brand new visa category to allow non-citizens to visit family in the U.S. A clarification of how humanitarian parole is used at land borders, but no change to the president's ability to bring in vetted, sponsored migrants through a program known as CNHV, Cuba, Nicaragua, Haiti, and Venezuela parole. A new pathway to citizenship for Afghan parolees, the Afghan Adjustment Act, and the children of H-1B holders. These kids are often currently subject to deportation when they become 21. Again, Republicans should be okay with this. These are kids that grew up in America. You want to deport Americans at 21? I mean, they grew up here. Little humanity. And remember, Republicans did agree to this. This is bipartisan in the Senate. And maybe the House, if Mike Johnson will let it have a vote. The bill helps fix the border and reform our broken asylum system, but it doesn't deviate from our nation's core values. We are a nation that rescues people from terror and violence. We are a nation that is stronger because of our tradition of immigration, period. Stop. So, this is someone who wrote that giving what they believe are the highlights, the important points. And remember, bipartisan. Now, of course, what has happened the last few days is Elon Musk has taken the opportunity over the weekend to just basically be anti-immigrant, which is really funny because he's an immigrant. Really funny. And then, of course, we have Tucker Carlson doing whatever he's doing with Putin in Russia. Would not be shocked if they try to bring in the Mexican border. I just get the feeling it's going to be that, and somehow Putin's going to be like, I have all this information about the border, to try to blow it up as a bigger issue. Or Putin's going to be like, hey, here's proof of aliens. One or the other. That's what I'm feeling. Of course, Mike Johnson is not even wanting to let this go to a vote. Well, why not? He says that Republicans don't actually support the bipartisan bill, and he says it wouldn't pass in the House, but at the same time, he won't commit to letting it even try to pass because, you know, fear it's going to pass. And of course, we had the convoy, and the convoy was a massive disappointment to people on the right for a lot of reasons. The convoy itself, I mean, obviously it was a Christian revival, but then the streamers that went to the border, and we get the clips coming out, the media interviews about how the border isn't what they thought, and all that. So, yeah, that's kind of a mess. It's not a good look when you're like, yeah, the locals in Texas, they can't deal with this. And the locals are protesting people that came from the convoy. Not a good look when you're trying to make claims that the locals support you when they don't. But I will say, the leaders were smart, by the way. There is an interview I watched with the leaders. I think I mentioned this early on, where they said that, yeah, when we go close to the border, the people there might not support us. But then, of course, they're like, because the really impacted people are in the deeper parts of the country. Sure, buddy. Sure. The governors went to the border today, and the lasting impact of that is it was a photo op. And now we're going to have a week of basically probably a lot of talk of this. I think this is probably going to be the big talk of the town. Will the House actually let a vote happen? We're going to have Republicans going out and talking about how it would never, ever pass, but then also it shouldn't have a vote because it might pass. Just nonsense. I mean, the border right now, right? If it's a crisis, if the border is so bad that something immediately has to be done, then shouldn't you take literally anything to secure it at this point? And then if you think Trump's going to win, he could, you know, get some stuff passed, right? Or do they think Trump's gonna lose and they need to use the border as a latch-ditch effort to try to boost his failing numbers? I wonder which one it is.